All right. Here we go. We're live, not on the deeper dive. Three fellas talking football. Let's get it done, boys. Dave Lochran, Andrew Barron,
Good day,
Ben
fellas.
Rasa, a happy Ben Rasa,
OS.
a jubilous Ben Rasa. How we doing, fellas?
Oh, good. Happy Thursday.
Living
just
life.
not
I'll let
feeling
Ben
it.
speak for me. Yeah, he's just feeling it.
Oh man, not feeling it today. That's all right. That's all right. We got a lot of pigskin to talk about. Uh I'm going to say a 12 game slate because we're not going to talk about Monday. We don't have time for that. And who wants to talk about that anyway? We've got 12 games on Sunday and some interesting ones to say the least. But I just kind of want to do like a bit of a report card here, boys, before we get into it. I'll start with you, Andrew. You look at we have 3 weeks, so we're starting to gather, a relatively decent sample. I mean, frankly, it's almost a quarter of the season, right? So it's compared to other sports, it's a decent amount.
Sure.
Some teams have been surprisingly good. Some teams have been surprisingly bad from an offensive and defensive perspective. Looking at just defensively this year, pass rank, the Saints rank dead last in DVOA. Dead last. They rank number 1 in run defense so far. This week, Drew Brees and the Saints have a matchup in the Meadowlands, or what is it now? The what's it called now? It's not the Meadowlands. Doesn't matter.
I
MetLife.
forget.
MetLife. Thank you. You're in New York. You're a New
Yeah,
Yorker.
I need to know that.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw Guns
Exactly.
N' Roses there a couple of years ago, like Slash, Axel, and Duff. Pretty fun.
wow.
But Buckethead wasn't the guitarist.
No, post Buckethead.
I love
Back
Mason
to the
Bucket.
roots. Yeah, you do.
So he is so
If we start talking music, that's going to put me over the edge today.
okay.
Just
Okay.
get him out of here.
No,
Imagine Ben at a Buckethead concert.
no Buckethead. We're not talking about any Bucketheads.
I'm surprised Ben knows who Guns N' Roses are, to be honest.
Right.
I don't really. I know that's Axl Rose. That's about all I got. Who's Buckethead? Is that a band or a guy?
Well, it's like one of the best guitarists in the history of guitars. He wears, okay, this is serious. Can you just Google him real quick? Buckethead.
He wears
Image-
he wears a
No,
KFC bucket on his-
don't.
Okay.
Just let him image search Buckethead,
What is?
please.
Oh yeah, sure.
He wears a KFC bucket and a Michael Myers mask. But anyway, getting back to the discussion here, the Saints ranked dead last pass defense, first in rush. I think Football Outsiders factors in matchups after week 4 or after week 3. Andrew, do you know?
I don't, off the top of my head.
It's one of them. It will be soon. It isn't yet, though. I can tell you that. And then Oakland, no surprise, is towards the bottom in both. Kansas City, 30th in rush and pass defense. But then you have, and then, of course, San Francisco, 29th. But then you have Houston, 28th in pass defense. Tampa Bay, 27th. The Chargers, 26th in pass defense, 25th in run defense. And then I'll give you one more or two more here. Atlanta is 25th and 32nd. And the Giants, 24th and 23rd. New England, I'm just giving you the bottom 10 here. 24th and 23rd and 17. Any of these teams stand out to you because I feel like this is the time where it's really important to start looking at this stuff instead of just playing the best guys from matchups that we liked from last season or because this guy came to that team, so we're going to avoid him now. Any of these teams stand out to you as being legitimately bad, even though maybe we didn't expect it earlier in the year?
I think the Chargers are a lot more attackable than you would think. The Bosa injury is huge, and he's going to be out till like week 8. Just, Melvin Ingram's really good, but having two guys be able to rush the passer is a really big deal. That hurts, guys like Casey Hayward, who, I think Casey Hayward's a pretty good cornerback, but he's a bit of a gambler. Like, he always rates like amazingly. A lot of people said he was the best guy in the league last year, which I don't necessarily want to fight about, but I do think he gets left on an island to the point that he's a little bit beatable. And then no Bosa just gives people more time. And then Atlanta is the other one on there that stood out to me. Like, they're dead. Like, the scheme they run, they don't have the personnel to do it anymore. The idea with the cover 3 is a lot of the time you give up the short stuff and then just tackle it immediately. But, both of their safeties are gone. Deion Jones is gone. Like all the guys that are supposed to be able to swallow up those sort of plays are done. Ben was all over last week with the Kamara, with Kamara. I thought he was a fine play, but I didn't really see 20 touches coming. And it's pretty wild. Atlanta, I think they're kind of screwed.
Yeah. You mean 20 targets?
Yeah, sorry, 20 targets, right?
30 targets, which is insane.
Yeah, 20 targets, 15 receptions, 16 carries. The funny thing, Ben, is Kamara actually on the ground has been wildly inefficient so far. He's doing everything through the air that isn't touchdown related.
Yeah, I mean, the way they use him, it's an extension of the run, and those we talk about this a lot on the show. Those targets are so converted at such a high clip. It's not like Michael Thomas, who's seeing a boatload of targets, but they're longer. They're obviously harder to convert. If Kamara sees those type of target numbers, it's so hard for him not to at least have a stable floor, just because he's converting 80-90% of them into catches, and they add up so quickly.
Yeah. By the way, Aldrick Robinson touchdown for Minnesota.
I thought he was on the Niners. There you go.
Have him in your captain spot?
Close.
He's a Lord, right? That's the Levitan thing. That was really funny.
Lord Aldrick. Yeah. I agree though with Andrew, Ben, that this Chargers team, especially with Bosa expected to be out until October, which is at least one more week, seems to be legitimately attackable right now, which has me really, 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 I don't want to say enthusiastic, but really intrigued by this game against San Francisco. I know CJ Beathard is the quarterback here with us losing Garoppolo for the year, but it's not like Garoppolo is playing well. And this Chargers defense has been carved up. Hell, even the Josh Allen led Bills dropped 20 points on them. I mean, I don't know. I feel like this Chargers team, despite us all thinking they'd have a pretty solid defense, granted not anticipating the injuries, has really had a ton of holes and is probably a lot more targetable than we thought, like Andrew said.
Yeah, I mean, it's true that Bosa not being there really does change the dynamic, but at the same time, it seems a little more than that. They just don't look great. He would help a ton. He really would, but man, it doesn't seem like they're going to slide him in and just become an elite defense, which I thought they would be. They have a lot of appeal in DFS in terms of using them when he's back, but they're going to be attackable pretty much throughout the year. I don't know if this is the week that I attack them, just because the Niners just have a bad situation right now. But
$4,600 Beathard, $4,600 bet.
I'm all about taking horrible quarterbacks, but I don't know about that. That guy, especially because quarterback's so flat. There's not even a quarterback over 7,000.
No, you're absolutely right.
You know where you could go in that game, actually? I'm just thinking of this, but
Kittle?
No, I was thinking Goodwin. Hayward gets left on an island often. Goodwin, if he's the number one guy. We saw Tyreek Hill roast Hayward in week 1. We saw Brandon Cooks last week get 7 for 90 and get tackled inside the 5 twice, like almost had the nuclear game. What do those guys have in common? They're really, really fast. What does Marquise Goodwin do? He's really, really fast. Like, Beathard's awful, but Goodwin, it wouldn't be surprising to see him get loose a couple times, and I'm sure he's cheap enough. I don't even know what his price is off the top of my head, but that's a reasonable idea.
No, it's a good point. I mean, Goodwin's got to be completely overlooked entirely here. I mean, I guess the only thing is, he's had this quad injury. Do we think that he has the same speed? And I mean, you have to assume if he's playing, he should.
Right.
No, that's definitely valid. I mean, you're right. Hayward's they've been burned by quick wide receivers in 2 of the last 3 weeks, and the only reason probably they weren't burned by Buffalo is because Zay Jones and Kelvin Benjamin,
wide receivers.
Exactly, you're not getting the job done no matter what. It's an interesting spot, and I think just more so, even if not playing Beathard, but this team is going to need to throw. I know the Chargers aren't great, or at least as good as we thought, but they should win this game with ease. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't. Right now, they are the heaviest favorite on the slate. They're 10.5-point favorites. So I think it's doable, but it's obviously risky. What about when we look at the rest of these teams? Andrew, I have to go to you here, then we'll get Ben's take. The New England Patriots and Tom Brady last week was a head scratcher. And then you it's like they don't really have outside guys. I think I saw something that Brady's outside passing has been the worst of his career to start a season. And it's not, I mean, you're looking at guys like Cordarrelle Patterson, Philip Dorsett. Hogan has been invisible. Gronk doesn't have a single red zone target on the year, but I guess they haven't been there all that much. What do you make of Miami's defense ranking top 10 in both facets of the defense, coming into Foxborough and facing I'm not a narrative guy, but I can't help but think that they light the shit up out of Miami in New England this week.
Yeah, it makes you really long for the days of Riche Caldwell and Jabbar Gaffney as the number one outside guys. Brady was awesome then too. I don't know. I don't know how much of it's his fault. It's hard. I think having the potential of having Gordon out there, I think the big thing for me this week is I am really, really interested in Chris Hogan and in Gronk if Josh Gordon plays. Just for Josh Gordon to take Xavier Howard, who's been a monster star this year. Like, that guy's been legit. He had like 4 or 5 like amazing games last year. This year he's just been unbelievable. If you can take away him and a safety, a safety cheating towards him a little bit with Gordon, I really like the idea of Hogan as a number 2 wide receiver. Like, he's been really good in that. He's just struggling as the only outside guy. And then if Gordon is there, I think that takes a little bit of pressure off of Goff. The Lions just were throwing 2-3 dudes at him every single play, so they couldn't get anything done. I don't like Gordon at himself at all, but I really like Hogan and Gronkowski a lot more if Gordon plays.
Yeah, Ben, I can't remember the last time I saw Brady sitting in the pocket for as long as he did and just taking hits, like multiple hits, numerous hits. To me, that was like uncharted waters as a viewer of football.
Yeah, no, you never see that. And I watch. I long for the Jets. They do seem to get to him. I don't know if I've just been shell shocked from decades of thinking that the Patriots are done, and then this seems like the spot where everyone, Miami's undefeated. They're coming in and they just get walloped, and it's 38-10, and it's just destruction. Everything's back to normal. Gronk has a pair of touchdowns. Hogan has 100 yards receiving. White and Sony Michel carry the load for Burkhead, and it's business as usual. I'm not saying, that the Dolphins haven't looked good. They've played some garbage teams and they've won their games. But in New England, I'll put it like this. If the Patriots look bad again, that would be a totally different scenario. I think they got one. It slipped away. It was a bad performance, but this is a division game that they kind of need early in the year. I expect a big performance from the entire team.
Yeah, I will say too, I actually had Detroit winning this game, but I had it at 27-24, only because teams on the brink tend to perform better unless you're like the 2017 Browns, who even stayed competitive, right? Like in a lot of games.
Should have won like the last 5, believe me.
Right, and we had them to win. I think Ben and I had them to win each of their last 5, but that's neither here nor there. Really though, you know, coming in to Detroit last week and seeing that game go down, Detroit played well. Credit to the defense, to the pass rush, but there was also something wrong with New England. And I just feel like they get that fixed, or at least fix some of that this week. They've played one home game, right? They played in Jacksonville, in Detroit. They're coming back to Foxborough. I don't see how, put it this way, if this game is competitive, which it's very possible that it could be, I don't see how the Patriots don't put points up, because even though they don't have Edelman yet, and we don't know what Josh Gordon's status is, Sonny Michel is still a hell of a talent, and I think used properly, he'll be fine. Andrew, Hogan is still a good player. Gronk is still the premier tight end in the National Football League, and Dorsett he can hang enough to be the number 3 pass catcher. Like, it's not that they are completely devoid of weapons here, and it's also not that Miami's pass defense is as good as they've looked, despite some great individual performances.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, yeah, I would be surprised if the Patriots don't really sort of give it their all here. Watch us. We're all saying this.
Are you down on your home team? Are you down on your boys?
Nah, I don't care. I mean, I barely pay attention to the Patriots during the regular season, which is such a spoiled fan thing to do. But you're just there every time, and it's like, all right, I'll start getting into it in the playoffs. I'm not
because you were hyped in the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, I mean, I get pumped for the end of it, but being a DFS player makes it a little hard to root for your teams. The Celtics are the only team I really like live and die with. The Pats, yeah, it's great. I really love watching their playoff runs. It's been a joy these last, 27 years that Tom Brady's been around. It's been a nice run.
My whole life.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's been nice, but I don't know. Michelle looks weird. I don't know if he knows the playbook. I think they thought he would just be, they thought he would be Dion Lewis 2.0. He hasn't really been able to do that yet. I'm not sure. Yeah, I would be surprised if they don't kill him, but watch, they'll lose this one. Everyone will completely write them off, and then they'll win out and get to the Super Bowl again. That would be the most Patriots thing ever.
If they lose this week, I'm playing every one of them next week. I just don't see how you couldn't. Look, Ben, we'll move on from this because I think we're all on a similar page. But I do want to know, before we go on from this game, thoughts on Sonny Michel this week with no Rex Burkhead. Obviously, Jeremy Hill's been out since week 1 and is done for the year. I mean, you have to think it's his backfield.
Yeah, on the ground, he's definitely going to get, first crack at the carries. I think he's in play. My plan right now is to primarily pay up at running back. I think it's a pretty big opportunity cost just in general. I like a lot of the top price backs. But yeah, I see it. There's not that much down there in terms of viable running backs. You have, the bozos who catch passes at like 3,800 that you can kind of hope break one. But in terms of guys who are going to be seeing volume on the ground, he's one of the few that I think you could look to.
And he's very cheap. I mean,
yeah.
You're looking at a guy who last week saw 14 carries. They were playing from behind most of the game. And I think you saw James White come in during garbage cleanup duty to catch some passes on that final drive that padded his stat line. But, the moment Burkhead went out, Sonny Michel was getting all of the work.
Yeah. I mean, he has the qualities of not that the Patriots like to do this, but of like a workhorse back. He's the guy. There's no way that James White is really going to be doing that. Kenyon Barner's not going to be doing that either. So we'll see. It's still the Patriots. I'm somewhat skeptical to see what they do there. I feel more comfortable trying to target some of the receivers. And, obviously if I can pay up to Gronk, I will.
Right. No, it makes sense. Andrew, we have the 53 over-under game between Cincinnati and Atlanta. It looks like right now Mixon is probably not going to play. He said he feels great, but it seems like we're trending in the opposite direction there. But this game is a very high total. Atlanta's defense, as you mentioned, has been carved up quite a bit, particularly by pass-catching running backs, and Gio Bernard is one of them. Do we see this continue this week, and are you willing to pay, $6,300 on DraftKings for him, assuming he plays? He's questionable, but it looks like he should be good to go.
Yeah, it feels weird, right? Gio Bernard, I feel like he's been the only guy a couple times before and just disappointed one way or the other. And 6,300 is a lot to pay, but he saw every snap last week. He was out there the whole time. Assuming he's healthy enough to give it a go, I think that Atlanta, unless Atlanta starts to fundamentally change something, which I don't think you can do that in the middle of a season. It's just, I'm going to be jamming Gio. He's obviously a cash lock. He's going to be the 30 to 40% owned guy in tournaments, and I'm probably still going to get over that. I'm probably just going to play him in 2/3 of lineups like I've been doing with the James Connors of the world. I will go there. It burned me last week with Clement. That was the guy, but. Mm-hmm. I think this is a different situation. I think Gio's going to see 7-8 targets. That floor is crazy. And then there's a really strong chance of just a nuke game.
Yep. 100% of snaps and an easy opportunity for 20 plus touches Ben, what are you doing with this game?
Yeah, I like this game a lot. That's been my theme early in the year. I've been picking on Atlanta. I was really, the Deion Jones thing. It doesn't help that they saw McCaffrey and Kamara, which are like two of the worst to defend against in this. But Gio is kind of from that cloth. He has capabilities. I think that the Bengals are not. I mean, they are stupid because Marvin Lewis is not a smart person, but they should realize that this is the way to attack Atlanta. This is the blueprint. It fits right into what they should want to do, and Gio's the guy there. AJ Green, I think, is fine at this point. Don't mind really looking to him on the outside. Probably cashing in my Tyler Boyd winnings from last week. I get it, but kind of feels like point chasing a little. High on the game in general. I think the big question for me is what to do with Julio. I never get him right. I always play him. I'm still interested, though. I kind of think it's appealing.
Oh,
is that tough, bad?
Man. No, I don't think it's bad. It's just it's Julio.
He's a bit of a luxury spend this week, I think, is the problem, because there's no insane value that just opens up every possibility for you, but there's a lot of guys that are 6, 7K that you should be playing. So that makes it hard to kind of just randomly play Julio, which, obviously that means he's going to score 35 points. But I don't know. I'm having trouble. I think in the last few weeks, because there ended up being this sort of cheap chalk that you could go to, it let you kind of mix and match with the studs. And I haven't built a ton, but just even building a few Thursday to Monday slate lineups, I had a hard time trying to do, it's like, I like Julio in this spot. I like Gronk in this spot. These are guys I don't think will be particularly high owned that have monster upside, but I had a hard time getting them in, which is probably another reason they'll be even lower owned. I don't know. That was just my initial thoughts there.
No, it makes sense. But I think one thing is for certain, and kind of just going off of what Ben said. After last week from Ridley, and now having him priced at 4,900, unless they're the Matt Ryan, Calvin Ridley, Julio lineups, for everyone playing one receiver and doesn't want to play two of them and Matt Ryan, like it's going to be $4,900 Ridley. I have no doubt that, especially after last week, Ben, that Julio's ownership is, relatively speaking, could be through the floor.
Yeah, I mean, he's been burning people who have played him. And if you haven't played him, I don't know why you would really be jumping on for that. It's like, and this Ridley thing, I have little interest in him, to be honest. I get it. We saw the explosion. I think he's just a wild variant play right now. And if people flock there, Sterling Shepard's down there, and I think he's going to be really popular as well.
I was going to ask, which guy do you think is more popular? They're both 4,900.
I think it's Sterling Shepard, but I hope it's Ridley. But yeah, I mean, I still, with Julio, it's one of those things. The ceiling for me is not in question, and when I have established that, when these guys are playing bad and the ownership is decreasing, it's hard for me to jump off because I still think that Julio has a 40-point upside.
Mm-hmm. He does.
You know what? Sorry. Go ahead.
All I was going to say is I still think Ridley will be higher owned than Sterling Shepard. I do. I could be wrong here, and we know that Evan Ingram is out, but I don't know. There's something about people loving guys coming off of 3 touchdown games and then a touchdown game before that. Like, I don't know. The hot hand right now, I know Ingram's coming off Shepard's coming off a strong game too, but I think there's more of that sex appeal with Ridley. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, that's a reasonable point. I think that's true. I personally, like Shepard, I think he's another guy that I'm having a hard time avoiding when I've looked at cash thus far. I like him quite a bit. But you know who the play in this game is, in the Cincinnati-Atlanta game? That's going to be, I think, probably a little under the radar because he's been a little disappointing the last couple weeks. Tevin Coleman. We just saw Carolina's destroyed O-line get Christian McCaffrey able to run for nearly 200 yards against this Bengals D-line, which the Bengals D-line is good, but they're more pass rushers. Like Geno Atkins is an Aaron Donald type. He's small. Like that's why he's really good at getting underneath people, but that doesn't necessarily make you a great run defender. And I don't know. Atlanta has a really good offensive line. I just would not be surprised to see Tevin Coleman just kind of go nuts here with what Carolina's offensive line was able to do to this Cincinnati D line. That was shocking to me. But
yeah, I think so too. Right now, though, obviously it's just the first run of the projected ownership on Awesemo.com. Tevin Coleman is right now showing as the, let's see, I'm going to tell you right now, in terms of position. Well, overall, he was like 10th highest projected.
Okay.
Pretty, I mean, to me that seems a little bit high, but
with Gio in that neighborhood,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so Kamara, everyone's going to play Kamara and Gio. It makes it really hard. Like, who is your third guy, right? I think there will be a ton of Kamara Gio lineups. So then it's like, I want to play Melvin Gordon. I want to play Ezekiel Elliott. I think people want to play Carlos Hyde, Saquon Barkley.
Too.
I personally really like the David Johnson 6.6K. Do people want to play Kerryon Johnson after he just carved up the Patriots? Like we talked about Sony Michel. Everyone's going to want to play him. Like, I'm not sure Coleman gets above, I don't know, 10. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see him at 10, 12%, but I'm not sure he becomes like massive chalk. And I think the ceiling is there for and we've seen Tevin Coleman's crazy athletic. We've seen him break huge plays. Mm-hmm. He can catch the ball. I would not be surprised to see Tevin Coleman just have the 25-point game and be at 10, 12% owned. Like that's a gamble worth taking, I think.
I don't see any way he's chalk. When you have Kamara, Gio, just the names you just mentioned, Zeke, Barkley, Gordon, Sony Michel too. I promise you Sony Michel will have considerable ownership because the flavor of the week thing is real in basketball, in football, in most sports where, a guy goes down and this guy takes over. And even if it's not the best spot, it's like, okay, he's going to get the volume. He's not expensive. He's you know what I mean? He's the guy. You see it all the time when a guy in basketball, when a point guard goes down for 2 weeks, for the first like 3 games, that replacement is super high owned. Even when his price starts to come up, Sony Michel is still cheap coming off a 14 carry game. I think his ownership is up there too, which just leads me to believe that Coleman will have some ownership, but I can't imagine, particularly being that he hasn't been great since filling in for Freeman. He hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been special. I think I'm with you. I don't see how it could be that high. What do you think of Zeke's ownership though? Because right now we're showing him around 20%. I definitely didn't. I didn't expect him. I thought he would go a little bit overlooked. I personally love this spot for him. I mean, Dak's been garbage, Ben, or at least, for fantasy purposes, completely non-existent. You look at the numbers on deep balls this year, just also non-existent. You have to think that at home against Detroit, Dallas, as we move to this game, is going to ram the ball down their throat with Zeke. I wouldn't be surprised. Seriously, I would not be surprised if he had 30 carries. I really wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, they have no weapons. The thing I like about Zeke, he's been a little more active in the passing game. He should have had a passing touch and he stepped out of bounds like a bozo last week. So he's getting that, additional, 4 or 5 targets. That really helps.
He led the team in targets last week with 8.
There you go. I like him, just complete gut feel. I felt he would fall somewhere in the teens in terms of ownership. I didn't think he'd creep into the 20s, to be honest. Right. There's just so many options. He's definitely a guy I'm looking to. I am worried a little that the Lions just say, you know what, we're going to put 9 in the box and just make you try to throw to Deontay Thompson, Allen Hurns, and just not let Zeke do it. But I still think with the volume that he's going to see, big games coming, I'm definitely buying. And that's where I'm saying there's a lot of running backs up there. I think we see a lot of teams with a running back in the flex this week. There's a lot of juicy targets in that upper mid-range.
Even if they do that and just force Dak to make moves, I think Zeke still gets work in the passing game because Gallup's been a colossal disappointment so far. He's dropped in every seasonal league I'm in, and I don't blame anyone for it. Allen Hurns, you thought that he could play a significant role. Allen Hurns, has not looked impressive whatsoever. How much can Cole Beasley really do? And then you're talking about Deontay Thompson and like gadget player Tavon Austin. Andrew,
Deontay Thompson is popping in optimals in my projections this week. That's how starved for value you are. But man, I'm not going there.
Well, I just think that Zeke, and to be fair, given his touchdown upside and just the fact that Ben mentioned how involved he has been in the passing game through 3 games, 8, 6, and 4 targets, but they've gone 4, 6, 8. So they are increasingly moving upwards. Granted, they played from behind last week, but still, this seems like 7,700 seems like a discount for Zeke, in my opinion, given the pricing of guys like Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, it's not bad. I certainly am interested in a little bit of Zeke. I hate Dallas. Like, I just don't like the way they play. They still just run these enormous sets with like multiple tight ends and just try to.
Oh, it's horrible football to watch. It's gross. Horrible.
Their wide receivers are really bad. None of them are even playing all that much. It's really hard to figure out. So I think it's Zeke. He's an interesting play. I think he's fine. I think he'll carry some ownership. I will have some. He's sort of borderline as the third guy for me in cash. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that, but if something crazy opens up, it's possible. But yeah, he's a totally fine play. I think he's a good value. He rates well in projections. Should be fine. I don't know that the like crazy nuke upside is there with him anymore, just because they don't have anybody else. So people will key in. The teams will key in on him.
I think it's only there if they can move the football and he can punch 3 in from like the 1, 2, and 4 yard line, which isn't out of the question. But
was just gonna say that exactly. Yep, I 100% agree. Like that the way he does it is, he breaks a long one, he gets a couple goal lines, and he has $120 on the ground, but he has 3 touchdowns, and that's where it all comes from.
And that's doable. I mean, we've seen it before, and honestly, they haven't really had the best weapons in the passing game. I mean, Dez was okay.
People respected him at least. He drew coverage,
especially
kept him honest at least.
Yeah, in the red zone too.
And what is, Matt, let's not forget, like, as much as we want to make fun of Matt Patricia and Law Lyons and all that stuff, like, he is from the Belichick school, where what do? They really, really key in on the number 1 guy. Like, they did that to Gronk last week. I'm a little worried about the floor on Zeke, and especially given how popular it'll be, but seems okay. It's just, I don't know. I'm a little skeptical of it, I guess.
I think he's almost more realistic in cash, but then saying that, it's like, who are you fading, But in cash, I think he's actually a good play because unless Detroit goes ahead early, and it's just not their MO, man. I know they did it last week, Ben. I get it. But Matthew Stafford, it sounds silly, but this is a second half quarterback for most of the time, unless they get that running game moving. This is not a team I'm worried about being up by 20 in the first. I just think the game is close enough. What the hell do I know after 3 weeks? It's been all over the place. But I just feel like it stays close enough to where the workload and the volume, which is what I care about most, is going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas at home, I would be stunned if they get blown out. But I'll say this. In the event that happens, I honestly don't think it's that big a deal for Zeke because they have no choice. It's not like they can abandon him even in a blowout game.
Good point.
The only way I'm worried about him is and there's a possibility that Dallas is just ineffective permanently on offense and that they just cannot move the ball on anybody.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yep. Yeah, well, maybe it's better they get from behind and Zeke gets a team leading 8 targets like he did last week. I mean, he saw 25% of the targets last week. And, I think it's pretty safe regardless, knowing that this is the guy that if you're going to move the ball whatsoever, it's going to have to be him. So I am interested, but I agree that you could have capped ups. The upside, I won't say capped, but he needs to score twice if you're going to – I think he needs to score twice to feel good about it. Can he do it? Yeah, absolutely. But you definitely need the scoring there. Andrew, this New Orleans and Giants game is another one where you have a guy in Kamara who saw 20 targets last.
Insane.
20 targets last week, man. It's outrageous. Meanwhile, you know what's even crazier? The fact that Michael Thomas has caught 38 of 40 targets.
Yeah, that's insane. It's, I mean, the New Orleans pass distribution is insane. Drew Brees has dropped back 100 or he's attempted 127 passes, so he's probably dropped back a few more than that with sacks. But so it's 127 passes and like 39 of them are to Kamara and 40 of them are to Thomas. That's like 28 to 30% for both, which for Kamara, whatever, that's number one wide receiver stuff. I mean, for Thomas, I'm sorry, that's number one wide receiver stuff. Kamara as a running back, also seeing number one wide receiver market share of targets is just insane. So he's projecting, like he has the highest projection I think I've ever seen. It's just about 30 overall. I'm kind of okay shorting him a little bit. I'll play him in cash, but his efficiency from last year still is kind of making him seem more efficient than maybe he is given the workload. And then his workload this year is kind of overblown because of the 20 targets last week. So,
yeah,
you know, when you sort of my projections and the way that stuff gets pulled together is kind of like drawing a little bit of an average of both. So he looks amazing, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the sort of normal workload that he gets, which is more in the 15 touch range, and then his, sort of normal efficiency at 9,600, that becomes a little bit tough. So I will probably play Kamara in cash. I probably won't play a ton of him in tournaments. And then, yeah, like what you were saying about Michael Thomas, the 38 of 40 is just wild. Yeah, I don't know that keeps up either.
No.
Yeah, I'm going to short that.
Yeah, I don't know either. Another thing too, Ben, Kamara, they've literally played from behind 3 straight weeks. Or, last week they were playing catch up for a while. Cleveland, they were behind almost, 2-3 quarters. Tampa Bay, they played from behind for 3 straight quarters. We don't even know what his actual workload looks like in a game where, like 20 targets. I don't know. It's really hard to. Wow, is that Kupp?
Cooper Kupp, Megadon. Yep.
Kupp with a monster touchdown. Yo, this team is outrageous. Anyway, Alvin Kamara, what do you think his workload is in a game where they're leading? Because I think they probably should be able to take a lead in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say Saints first time out of a dome in New York. It's not the easiest spot. The spread is close. I expect this to be a competitive game, but, I hopped on Kamara last week for no reason besides I thought there was going to be a volume increase. Obviously, the OT helped, but I'm almost going to always be shorting him if he's going to see a, 8 targets and 10K. Like I can't pay those prices. I think what we see going forward, when the Saints have a game that kind of takes a trajectory that I assume where they're leading, is that a lot of the targets are just converted into carries, and that really lowers that floor. The carries are just not the same. He's very dangerous. He's always going to have the upside, but I don't know. I'm still skeptical of him as a whole. He worked out last week. I was really happy I jumped on, especially because I really do not play him a lot. But week to week, it's going to be a judgment for me. Michael Thomas, although he's great, I prefer Odell. I prefer Hopkins. I prefer Julio. Taking the discount there, I can't pay that price for him.
Yeah, I don't think I can either, because that catch rate, what's he have, like a 97% catch rate?
It's high.
It's
what is it?
It's 38 divided by 40.
Yeah,
95%.
Exactly.
Yeah,
95% catch rate. 90. It's not like these are all
Kamara
right, or like Cole Beasley like. I mean, it's out of this world, and like he's going to be productive all year. He's a monster. He's excellent, but you're paying for Thomas's ceiling. I guess what it comes down to. I don't want to spend too much time. We only got like 10 minutes to go, but how certain teams don't spread the ball around. Either one of you guys can take this, and that's a great thing. Like with Ingram out, particularly Eli Manning, we know he's going to 3 guys. Right? Maybe sprinkle them around a little bit, but 3 guys: Barkley, Odell, and Shepard will get his looks. With Kansas City, it's been Kelsey, Watkins, Hill. With New Orleans, it's been Kamara, Thomas, and then, once in a while mix in a little Ben Watson or Ted Ginn. But, there are a few teams, I'd say 5 or 6 in this league.
Houston.
Houston's absolutely one of them. That's a huge one, where the targets are so heavily concentrated. And this is one of them right now. The problem is, even with that, you're factoring in monster price tags. They are the 2 highest priced players at their position.
It's so hard to get burned by 9,000 plus. Right. It's so hard for them to put up a game where it's unfadable. Granted, Kamara's done that twice this year. That was my argument against him last week. Is like, what is he going to have to do for me to not to be dead if I didn't play him in tournaments? Well, if he scores 37 points, I can do that.
For me, it's, I take him separately. Michael Thomas is he's not the best receiver in the league to me. He's just overpriced. That's a separate issue. The thing with Kamara, it's part that the volume worries me. It's also, you have legitimately, for me, 5 running backs right below him that I think are also going to play good. So if Kamara gets 35 and Zeke explodes and gets 32, most likely you're not going to have both of them unless it's a specific, there's going to be an opportunity cost for going up there. You may be able to survive a good Kamara game, not a nuclear one, but there's a lot of middling games from him where, Melvin Gordon had 3 touchdowns. So you're not probably pairing them. I actually am glad I had Melvin Gordon because price per dollar, of course, is going to matter.
The patented Le'Veon Bell 22-point game is not going to kill you. If that's what Kamara does this week, it's fine. That's totally fine if you didn't play him.
Yeah, I think so.
Spots it may help.
I actually am going to have quite a bit of Beckham this week. I just feel like each week you see Beckham with such lower ownership than ever. I mean, last week I played a lot of Beckham. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't winning me anything. But this guy every week is getting look, if you don't believe that, Thomas is going to continue getting 15 targets a game and catching 14 of them, then you have to like Beckham to some extent, because this is a guy who each and every week is getting a ton of targets. He had 10 last week in a game that they had a lead. 9 the week before. In week 1, he saw 15. 15 targets. I mean, Odell is still a number 1. He's still getting a number 1 workload, playing at home against the Saints team, whose pass defense, as I mentioned, ranks dead last in the NFL right now. I just think Beckham at that price, where everyone's looking Thomas and probably Hopkins, I don't know. I think there's a chance I won't say overlooked, but where he's not exactly popular for the guys in his price range. Maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, I think that game's going to be popular to target. It'll be interesting to see how many people go Eli, Odell, Sterling, Shepard, and then try to run it back with Kamara or someone. I don't even know if that's viable.
That's my problem. I hate playing Eli.
It's scary because I don't want to play him either, but then it's
oh my God, Aldrick Robinson again. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Man, these Niners guys coming out firing. Which team is he on?
He's on Minnesota.
Okay, there you go. What happened to Laquan Treadwell? This was supposed to be his megadon.
That guy ran a 4.740, dude. Laquan Treadwell should not be a professional NFL wide receiver if he ran a 4.740. And he was a first-round pick.
In Laquan Treadwell's defense, he was unbelievable in college, and he had one of the worst leg breaks I've ever seen. And just the fact that he's in the league is a miracle.
Yeah. He also leads the league in drops on only 12 catchable passes.
The leg break was so bad that it affected his hands. I don't know what to say about that part, but yeah, he was a monster.
Was he fast before?
Yeah, no, he was. That's what I was alluding to. He was
okay. So that's why he was a first round pick. I just have never understood a guy that slow. I mean, Devin Funchess was Devin Funchess was a high draft pick too, and that guy is super slow. Kelvin Benjamin, super slow.
Oh, dude, he is just falling off a cliff.
Josh Allen will carry him. Don't worry.
He's not going to be. He's not. He can't get downfield. How is Josh Allen going to carry him? You got a rocket arm and a guy that's like tight end slow.
What are your guys' thoughts on
Beckham? Was the fastest wide receiver on Carolina last year. I'm just going to leave it at that.
I like Beckham. I can't envision. I'll put it like this: if you play Beckham and Shepard together, I feel you have to play Eli. And Sterling Shepard's one of the few guys that I like in terms of, not that he's extreme value, but he's cheap. So it's a tricky situation there. I don't know exactly what I want to do with that, but yeah, I like Odell. I think a huge game is coming. It's been inefficient. If Eli, this is a spot, I think they can hold up in pass protection, and that's why Saquon Barkley's getting all those, dump offs and whatnot. It's pressure related. I think we see Odell possibly break one here and have a big game.
Yeah. What about you, Andrew? Just this Giants team in general.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind those three as a stack. It's hard to run that back just because Thomas and Kamara are the ones you want to do, and then they're super expensive, and then you're out of money at that point if you've got Odell and Kamara.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm willing to play a little Eli just because of the price tag more than anything else, and because I like Beckham and Shepard, but it's not my favorite play of the week, but I think it's totally fine. I will probably have a reasonable amount of exposure to that, assuming it's not going to be the, 8%, 9% owned stack in tournaments.
It's a tough one.
Which it might be.
No, I know. I just Odell hasn't had that monster game yet, right? He's had 2 real solid games, but he hasn't had that monster game.
Yep.
And we've seen monster games from Odell Beckham are monster games. And I just, we've seen I went back and was watching, every touchdown pass from Matt Ryan, or at least 4 of them, were on the right side of the field, and 3 of them in the red zone, or maybe it was inside the 30, but thrown to the end zone, were all on the right side, corner end zone, right at the pylon. There's like a legitimate weakness in this defense right now with New Orleans, and it's pretty evident. And Marshawn Lattimore is lining up on the right side 70% of the time. He has been the biggest disappointment defensively, I think, from last season. I mean, Andrew, this guy. So if you look at Football Outsiders, take it for what you will, but on the right side, this season on passing plays, New Orleans ranks dead last. Now, granted, they rank pretty low everywhere, but way worse on the right side. That's where Lattimore's been 75 almost % of the time, almost 3/4 of the time. He's just getting pummeled this year.
Yeah, he's been bad. Crawley's been bad. PJ Williams in the slot's been a nightmare. They look. I mean, Lattimore's been fine for what it's worth. We can't talk too much about it, but Pro Football Focus has been slaughtering Crawley and Williams more than Lattimore, and then they haven't been able to get quite the pass rush that they were last year. They've been okay, but I'm with you. I think the New Orleans secondary is just they're not. I don't know that they were as good as they were last year. I don't think they're as bad as they are this year. It's probably somewhere in the middle, but I think it's definitely an attackable spot right now. Cornerbacks, a lot of it depends on their defensive line too. Like that makes a guy look good, and they were able to rush the passer a lot better last year, and it's just been a bit of a struggle. So I'm with you. I think Odell, the Odell nuke spot is certainly there, and then I think Shepard's a really nice play in cash where you need to find some value.
All right, we got about 5 minutes, so we're going to do one more game here. We've talked about Chargers in San Francisco. We've hit on New Orleans and the Giants. We've hit on Cincy, Atlanta. We've hit on Dallas, Detroit, Miami, New England, and I think that's it. So we got a few that we haven't touched on. Some of them are just disgusting. You guys picked the last game to talk about that you think is interesting.
Minnesota, LA. There are 29 people in first place of this showdown slate with Aldrick Robinson captain.
Unbelievable. What a joke.
I'm not one of them. Spoiler.
Give me a game. You got to
I'll throw out the Colts game. I think them and the Texans pretty interesting.
Where are you going here?
I don't mind either side. I think Deshaun Watson, I didn't have that much of him last week, but Andrew had talked about this. And this has been the theme early in the season. He had a huge game. It was just that Matt Ryan and Drew Brees had nuclear games, and that kind of gets lost in the shuffle.
I had a ton of Watson. It wasn't enough.
Yeah, he's going to be inefficient. And another one where if someone told me they were punting with the Colts defense, I would say I totally see it. And if you told me that I like Deshaun Watson this week, I think you could pair him up with Fuller or Hopkins. Colts defense has been better than I thought it would be, but I still think you can attack it. Lamar Miller is not going to be useful, especially, Deshaun Watson's going to be doing the heavy lifting. They're either going to be behind and he'll be throwing, or they're going to be winning because he threw. Lamar Miller is not going to do anything useful. So game I don't mind, targeting Ebron on the other side, going to be popular if Doyle doesn't play. Part 2.
Yeah. I did not go Ebron last week. And it could have killed me because he had like 18 red zone targets.
I know.
The guy just stinks.
He's terrible. Yep. He didn't get hurt, though. That was the shocker.
He still got it done that last drive. So annoying. I didn't have much of it there.
He didn't get it done enough to kill you if you didn't have him.
No, but the people who played him in cash were fine.
Exactly.
Right, which is disappointing. Hunt, though, has been ridiculous for the Colts. He has looked really good, and this pass rush has actually been okay. They got the Wentz a bunch against a really solid offensive line. I still think the Texans go as Deshaun Watson goes, though, Andrew. So go ahead.
No, I think Deshaun Watson is not a particularly good real-life quarterback, but he's an amazing fantasy quarterback.
Exactly.
Had a ton of them last week. Didn't quite work. Nuke only, he threw for 385 yards. Nuke got 85 yards and no touchdown, and he was the lower owned of him and Fuller. He actually caught a touchdown, got called back for holding or something, and then the next play was the touchdown to Fuller. Nuke was 8% owned, and Fuller was 30% owned in the Wildcat, and I had both, but would have much preferred that go to DeAndre Hopkins. And then again, the Watson was fine. He was really good. He had 29 points and was the 6th highest scoring quarterback. I think that's actually to bring back earlier what you were saying about Beathard. I don't disagree that Beathard's a fine play value-wise in a vacuum. We've just seen, and I think it's going to continue, the holy crap quarterback games, and I don't see any way Beathard gets you 27-28, which is the only way he can really keep up with, because somebody's going to score 39. Like it happens every week.
Yeah, could be Brady, it could be Breeze, could be Rivers. It could it could be Watson. Like Watson still has that 5 passing touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown upside. He's still
right. I think he's the most likely guy to do it personally. So I'm probably, I think more than half of the time he's going to have a bad game, but he can be bad in real life and just go nuts like Kirk Cousins did against the Packers. You can do that.
And he's
Yes.
One thing though is this Houston team, this defense has been shit, just pure dog shit, man. Like they have not looked good at all. They're in a lot of facets of the game. They rank towards the bottom so far. It's been a struggle for this team. You're talking about tackling. They rank 24th. Oh God, there were so. Oh, here it is. And then in coverage, they rank 29th. So the problem is that Andrew Luck just isn't throwing deep. I mean, they brought in Jacoby Brissett to throw a 60-yard Hail Mary at the final play of last game because, you had Reich and Luck both say, he's got a deep ball that I don't have, and they tried to play it off like. Frank Reich tried to play it off like, no, it's just he has a bigger arm. But that's a little weird to me, and they're not letting Luck throw deep. I still have interest, though, honestly. I think one of my favorite kind of sneaky plays this week, who I think is going to be very low, I love T.Y. Hilton. He's always played – take it for what you will, but his home road splits have always been insane for his career. Houston's defense is getting, the pressure amazingly. Josh and I talked about it on the process show. Like their pressure you would think that it would actually be good. It has not been good whatsoever. I mean, it just has JJ outside of JJ Watt, nothing. Jadeveon Clowney, nothing. So I think
and
this
Merciless has got to still be hurt because he's been awful.
Awful. So I think Hilton could have a really big game here, man. He's one of only a few receivers with 10 plus targets in all 3 games. You know he's going to be used heavily. Yeah, I might be on an island here, but I think this could be a huge T.Y. Hilton game.
I don't mind that. Yeah. I mean, you talked about it at home, prefers the dome. Even though he's not going deep, like Luck gets him involved. We've seen the targets. And yeah, Houston's defense is not good right now. So if they're playing catch up, it's one of the better stackable games, not just because of the up and down, the salaries kind of fit if you want to stack. So I definitely have some interest in running it back with T.Y. Hilton type.
Yeah, I think the only thing I don't like is I wish he was like 6,000.
That would
wish
help,
if it was a little bit cheaper, I would be like all over T.Y. Hilton. But he isn't, and even in terms of like yards after the catch hasn't been huge this year. But no, I still like him this week. Anyone else you like from this game, Andrew?
No, I mean I like the Texans with the double stack with Nuke and Hopkins. Nuke and Fuller quite a bit, and then I'm with you on Ty. I don't think the Hail Mary thing is, I think, a little overblown. Like Brissett has a cannon, and when you're throwing a Hail Mary, it's just distance. That's the only thing that matters.
Yep,
and Luck, whatever. He had a big arm early in his career. He's coming off a major shoulder injury. Like, why risk it? It's not that important of a play. Is more where I would lean there. So no, I don't think that's a big deal.
For me, it's just more of not throwing deep for the first 3 weeks.
Yeah. No, it's true. He hasn't been. But Ty also is super fast, so he can make a play. He can kind of do the break a slant for 80 yards.
Yeah, he's another one of those guys that you don't need him to be like pigeonholed into one type of play to produce. He can do it a number of different ways. So that'll do it for us. Any final thoughts on this, boys? Anything we didn't talk about? I mean, obviously we'll have the game plan on Sunday, Ben and myself, before lock. We'll have a bunch of shows that are out here, so we're going to get to everything. But I think this is a good preliminary look at Sunday. Anything we haven't got to you want to touch on?
No, I'm just bummed my 3 favorite games are not on the main slate. Like the Pittsburgh-Baltimore, Kansas City-Denver, and then tonight's game are like the coolest games on the week. But it's all right. It's a bit of a congested week. I think it's hard to find a lot of great value, so you're kind of playing a lot of mid-tier stuff. We'll see if anything opens up. I kind of hope it doesn't, because we've had just like these monstrously chalky weeks the first few. And I think this week will be fun because you got to make some more decisions. I'm
kind of glad I don't have to worry about getting killed or burned by one of the Rams receivers that's going to have a big game and someone in Kansas City. So I don't hate it.
That's true. We'd all be pissed about Cooper Kupp right now.
Yep. Absolutely. Ben? Yeah,
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what opens up. This week feels distinctly different than the other 3. I don't know. They kind of felt similar in some ways. This one feels a little odd. Obviously, we'll see what Sunday brings. But, we talk about all the time. This is why you don't want to have a regimented process where you do one thing, because you have to evolve as the slates. You require a different set of skills to attack a slate like this, rather than what we saw in week 3 with a lot of cheap running back value and things like that.
By the way, Seth in chat, someone just posted it, said, if you want a flyer, Treadwell has had a couple drops. He could be replaced by Aldrick Robinson. It's not the craziest thing to happen. But you look at that. It's true. Treadwell leads the league. He has 4 drops on 12 catchable passes. That's not acceptable. That should be Amari Cooper's job. All right. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here next week. 7:15. Not this time during the game. It'll be before the game next week, as it usually is. And we'll see you back here next time. We'll also see you on Sunday and from A to B tomorrow afternoon. Good luck.